Hey everybody, another beautiful day in Montana. I'm gonna go get my cold plunge done and then I'm gonna work out. And I just got done being sick, so I'll just be doing toe raises today to max, and I'll do that a few times. But I've just been doing kind of a light workout each day, and so I'm glad and happy to be back to about full here, and I'll truly be there tomorrow. Now I'm kind of changed my schedule up today, and so it's already noon, so I'm gonna go jump in, work out, and then eat. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, the things I started doing and eating and all of that started to make me have more energy. So before my cold plunge, number one that I want to talk about, and one of the simplest yet I would say greatest changes that I made for just how easy it is just drinking a glass of room temperature water with about a quarter teaspoon of salt in it. It sounds a little too simple, but it really gets your body going. It just seems to wake me up and actually hydrate me. You could also add some lemon juice in there if you wanted to, but I don't. And it's just a perfect way to start off the morning. Now for me, the second thing that I have in the day is coffee. And I do that when I go and I sit down to start writing, and it's kind of that stimulus that gets me started after it's been bright and early. So I instantly start writing, and I would suggest to anyone that wants to do creative work or something they don't want to do in the morning, work around it with your coffee routine and or whatever other drink you have that's caffeinated, even if it's green tea or something. Work that in with that thing, and you'll find that you start to get excited and you start to get into a flow state just by taking a sip of it. So, all right, I'm gonna jump in, do a little time lapse, and then I'm gonna talk about fasting, because I don't eat until noon, and sometimes not until closer to 3. Like, it's already 1, and that's what I've had today, my glass of water and my coffee. Of course, I've had a lot more water than that afterward. But all right, I'm gonna jump in and we'll talk about fasting. All right, feeling good now. So first part of fasting with the cold plunging is I always cold plunge before I eat. I found that after I eat, it's not just that I'll get lethargic, but it's almost like a drop in willpower for me after eating. And I've just found that cold plunging is much more enjoyable, feels better, and everything if I do it before I eat. But it just seems to be easier. Now, the other reason that I like doing fasting, for me, it gives me more energy and it gives me mental clarity, and like I said, willpower. So I'm able to get all my work done in the morning with a clear focus, and intermittent fasting helps me do that. And I've tried eating early in the morning multiple times, and even waiting until like 10, and it just never works for me. And I'll even wait till 3 o'clock sometimes if I'm in a flow and I've got a lot going on and I'm not hungry. And but I do want to say with that, with the intermittent fasting, I've never been someone who likes eating before 10 o'clock. And so intermittent fasting almost just gave me an excuse to do it. It's always come very naturally to me. So I don't know that if it was a difficult thing, if I would really do it. It works really well for me. I get a stomach ache if I eat early in the morning. I don't like to. But it works really well for me. It gives me mental clarity, and it just gives me a lot more energy. Next, I'm gonna be going over what I'm actually eating for lunch and dinner, as well as like snacks, vitamins, and all of that. One other thing I wanted to mention about fasting was that I personally think about food less while I'm fasting, and that's one of the reasons I really enjoy doing it. And if I eat in the morning, I pretty much will just think about food the rest of the day, and I don't enjoy doing that. So that's why fasting works for me, but it might not work for you, and maybe something that would work better would be fasting later, or eating early in the morning and at lunch, and then not eating later in the day. But for some people, just having something throughout the day is also the best thing. So all I can say is that this has been something that I've really enjoyed doing. All right, and so for lunch, I have been eating pretty much the same thing now for about 2 weeks, and it is working really well for me. I really enjoy it. And that is sardines, seaweed, and nuts. It's pretty simple. It gives me like everything I need. It makes me feel energized. It makes me feel good. Now, sometimes though, I do feel like I need a little bit more. And so sometimes my mom has soup and I'll just eat a bowl of soup, or maybe just a cup of rice with it. And I will also eat fruits when I feel like it, when I just need a little bit more energy. I used to not be able to handle fruits very well, but recently I've actually really enjoyed eating fruits, and I get a good energy out of it without crashing. But I think for some people, and I used to feel this way, fruits kind of make you crash. So now I don't always eat perfectly though, and I enjoy having something every day. And recently what my thing has been is I will have a beer and a candy bar, and I usually do this while I'm doing something active like going fishing or something like that, and I enjoy it. It's fun. It's a little thing. I think this could be translated into anything, but I found that I do a lot better with sugar if I'm exercising, if I'm moving, if I'm doing something, and I'm kind of instantly burning it off. For dinner, I oftentimes will have rice and potatoes with a meat and some vegetables, and I don't really push myself to eat vegetables. I guess it's something I forgot with lunch, is that I will eat things like celery, carrots with like a homemade ranch, or a peanut butter without any sugar in it with the celery, but not an overly large amount. And with dinner, oftentimes I'll do the same if it's something crunchy, or if it's like baked. I enjoy baked vegetables, but I don't really force it. And I know that vegetables are good, but oftentimes it feels very forced eating vegetables. That's one thing I like about the microgreens with the olive oil and the vinegar is that doesn't feel forced to me, while larger salads feel very forced. I would rather just eat carrots and cucumbers and celery by themselves, and then have just like a microgreen salad. I much prefer that over having like a giant salad or a bunch of vegetables. So that's what works for me there. And then so when I did start doing kind of, I would say, lower carb than if you're having carbs all the time, and as long that comes with just eating healthy, is you have to increase your salt intake. And so I just have sea salt. That's what works for me, makes me feel great. If you forget this and you've started eating healthier, you might get headaches, you might feel drained, and oftentimes just adding some sea salt in, and it's probably going to be more than you think because of just how much salt they put in processed foods. You may start to feel better. Now, I don't really, I go occasionally into ketosis and into keto, but for the most part, I don't like to be. And so I found that I do need rice or potatoes with how active my lifestyle is in order to feel good all the time. So I have no problem eating rice and potatoes. I normally stay out of ketosis. And for me, it's enough energy to get me through the next day. And especially rice, I feel really good eating rice. So, some deer. I've never had a problem with rice, and that's kind of partially how I feel about it. Is if you're obviously feeling better, if it's obviously working for you, why would you stop? Like, I think that there's only so many markers that you can have for what is health. If you look online, there's so much stuff for keto, vegan, low carb, pretty much everything. I mean, nobody really disagrees with the fact that eating processed foods and high amounts of sugar, you know, those are bad for you. So no matter what, cutting those out are good things. But I think they don't always really tell you with that, though, you need more salt, and that maybe you don't have to go so extreme if you cut those things out and start to feel better, and you find that you do well on rice, even though some things say rice isn't so good or potatoes aren't so good. People will say, like, right, like meat and fat and all of these different things are not good. And if you're constantly thinking about what's not good instead of that your food is nourishing, I just think that it creates kind of this negative energy around food. So which I used to do, and I've stopped now, and I do what makes me feel good. And so I try to have a good amount of meat, but I found that processed meats don't work for me. They make my stomach hurt, and they make me feel really lethargic. So, you know, I feel like I don't really need a science degree to go past the fact that when I eat processed meats, I don't feel good, and that when I eat rice, I feel amazing. You know, if I'm not having problems outside of that, do I really need to kind of continue narrowing it and getting harsher and harsher? And I don't think so. Now, there is a problem, and like when I lived in Lewiston, I was finding myself becoming allergic to everything. And the best I can think is, one, I have asthma, and it's full of just tons of stuff in the air. They have a really bad quality of air there. And the other thing is, I was possibly living with mold. So you have to figure out environmental things like that. But sometimes the food we've eaten in the past has screwed up our microbiome. And so 2 tricks for that I found, well, my parents were the ones that told me, and it worked for both me and my fiance. We were having a harder time processing meat and animal fats, and we started taking ox bile, and when we were eating those heavier meats, and we don't even have to do that anymore. And it's supposed to kind of change the way your body takes those things in, and it worked for us. The other major thing is sauerkraut and getting probiotics like that, and just real natural ones. Sauerkraut worked for us extremely well. Every time I have a stomach ache, I take sauerkraut and it disappears. And I used to have them constantly. And so the first few months here after I was getting healthy again, I was having to eat the sauerkraut all the time, and slowly it's become less and less to where I hardly have to anymore, and I actually have to remind myself to keep eating the sauerkraut. Another good one would be like kimchi. I think that probiotic foods like natural, like sauerkraut, can be amazing for your gut microbiome and healing a lot of those problems that you, and even allergies that you may have with food after you've healed your gut. And there can be a lot more with that, and I already called her out last time, but you can go check out my sister's account, Caitlin King. She made sauerkraut a few weeks ago, and she's been working on her own gut health, which has been problematic for her. Oh, and I will potentially be making a sauerkraut video in the future. Okay, and then vitamins, I just want to say the 2 that have made a big difference for me, and one especially for my fiance: magnesium and vitamin D. Vitamin D is amazing during the winter. It can also, if you find you're starting to get acne, take some vitamin D and it may just go away. I've told that to several people and it's worked for them. And then magnesium literally helps with almost everything. try out different magnesium supplements. There's the ones that are supposed to work for different people, and if you don't see a considerable change in a month, you should try a different one. And it sounds kind of crazy, but depending on the one, you can have a completely different reaction depending on what your body needs. So magnesium and vitamin D. And so the final thing I just wanted to say was that has helped me kind of decrease my negative foods is I have the Unreal bars from like Costco. It's literally chocolate and coconut, and there's like 3 carbs in them, and I'm less concerned about that and more just that they're real ingredients, and they're very small. They're like this big, and for me, I can eat 1 to 2 of those at night and I'm good, and I don't crave anything else. I don't need anything else that night. While if I eat something else, like maybe cookies or anything else, I'm craving more. I want them the next day. And so that's kind of one of my things, is just if you can find maybe a dessert that you like but you're not completely obsessed with, and you can just have 1 or 2 a night, you can still feel satisfied without having to overdo it. And the other one that I do, cocoa with monk fruit. If you're doing a small cup, a tablespoon of cocoa and a tablespoon of monk fruit, and it's delicious. Oh, and some sea salt. And if you're doing a larger one, then it would just be 2 to 2. And depending if you like more sugar, you're gonna have to do more, or if you like more cocoa, you're gonna have to do more. I like more cocoa, so I go more extreme on the cocoa. Back at the camper, I'm gonna be doing a camper, not tour, but more, because I've already done a tour, but more like life in the camper, how it actually is sleeping in it, going back and forth with, waters and different things. All right, thank you everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and follow, and we'll see you next time.